We are officially at 8:30. Let's grab our seats. Quick announcement, just so you know, the kitchen is off limits for anybody. Please don't go in there unless you have a commitment. The stock that's in their kitchen belongs to the church. We just can't help ourselves to their things. We're at here. The church treats us very well because of the use of this facility, but we got to be mindful of their facility and take care of it. So be mindful of that. What else we got to do? If you do need to smoke, please go across the street. No smoking on church property. That's pretty simple. What else we got to do? Don't forget the meeting before the meeting and after the meeting. That's really important. And our sister group meets on Thursday, right up the street, 1 block away, 7:30 p.m. The Big Book Study Solution Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. We go through the Big Book. We solve all the world problems prior to the meeting, so get there early. We're usually an hour early with that. We're going to need some help setting this, putting this away, but like a third of these chairs stay. It's a really screwed up system for the next few weeks. Bear with us. It is what it is. What else have I got now? I think that's about it. Kara's going to come up here. Let's have some fun with this.
Hello, everybody. My name's Kara, and I'm an alcoholic. Hello, everybody. So good to see y'all tonight. This is a 1-hour speaker meeting that meets every Saturday evening at St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 301 North Main Street at 8:30 p.m. in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Food and fellowship starts at 8 p.m. The business meeting for this group meets every Saturday at 7 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. right here. The purpose of this group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God reliance and service to others through the practice and teaching of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others may benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone new or from out of town that would like to introduce themselves? Please just first name and raise your hand. Welcome, Frank. Welcome, Nick. Welcome. 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 The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. Would anyone with working knowledge of the 12 steps and is willing to sponsor, please raise your hands. Are there any announcements for the good of AA tonight? We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for this purpose of the big books and CDs to help those who can't afford them can put donations in the jar at the table marked Big Book and CD donations. If you would like a CD or any speaker, pastor present, see me or any home group member before or after this meeting. They are available free of charge. Now I've asked Sherry to please come up and read the preamble.
Hi, I'm Sherry. I'm an alcoholic. A preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve the common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We're self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. It does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. I've asked Teresa to come up and read the AA 12 Steps of Recovery.
Hi, I'm Teresa. I'm an alcoholic. The AA 12 Steps of Recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And I'm going to turn it back over to Kara.
The 7th tradition states every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. At this time, I would like to pass the basket. We have no dues or fees, but we have expenses. This group provides many services. Your donations cover rent, big books, CDs, events, and workshops, etc. There is absolutely no smoking on church property. Please take a moment to silence all cell phones and limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. Now, I'd like to introduce a good friend of the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown. Let's give Sarah a warm welcome. Woo! Woo, woo, woo!
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah. I'm an alcoholic. Oh Lord. This is a little bit much. I want to thank Ron for asking me to come out to speak tonight. I love coming to this meeting. There's so much excitement for Alcoholics Anonymous in this room. Every time I come here, you know, everybody just radiates excitement. And I went through a period of a couple years in Alcoholics Anonymous where I lost my excitement. You know, I was in a home group where I was, you know, unhappy and forcing my will on everyone else, and I thought I knew better than everyone else, and, you know, I just really didn't know what the problem was, and it was my internal condition had resurfaced. And it wasn't until COVID hit, and I was looking around in my life and realizing that all these human powers that I had come to rely on were being stripped away from me, kind of like everybody else. You know, we get slammed with this pandemic, and all of a sudden I can't leave the house. And, you know, I didn't lose my job. I was fortunate in that regard. I didn't, you know, suffer financially, but I was trapped in the house with my housemate, who's my best friend, and I love dearly, but good Lord, I mean, there's only so much you can take of one person. And, you know, I'm a runner, and I got injured. I couldn't run anymore, and I was in a relationship at the time, and it started to go south, and all of a sudden I'm in my sober skin, and I was, you know, I had a connection like with a home group, and we started doing work on Zoom, and all I did was find myself arguing with people, and I was trying to, like, I couldn't sit still. I was becoming restless, irritable, and discontent. I had to become restless, irritable, and discontent. I was really uncomfortable sober again. And I picked up the phone and I called my sponsor at the time, and I told her, like, I need to do another inventory. And she said, why don't we go through the 12 steps again? I mean, I had nothing but time on my hands. And this is my experience, and that's all I have. And, you know, my experience was at 8 years sober, I took the 12 steps again because it was necessary, because my, you know, what I really suffer from, you know, is not alcohol. Like, I came in and out of the rooms of AA for many, many years thinking alcohol was the problem, thinking other substances were the problem. And I sat in these chairs and I sat in the rooms of AA thinking, like, I don't understand what's wrong with me because you removed the problem from me. Like, I don't have a drink in me and I want to die, and I can't figure out why all you people are so happy. And over and over and over again, I keep getting separated from alcohol. And over and over again, I pick up again despite all consequences. And I can't figure out why. And it wasn't until I realized that my sober skin is really the problem, and until I do something to treat that, I'm going to continue to have this problem. Because I'm seeking over and over again that relief, that sense of ease and comfort that comes at once with that first drink. And I'm here to tell you, I've done everything wrong you could possibly do in the rooms of AA. And the story you're going to hear tonight, I'm not going to tell you a story of how to do AA right. I'm probably going to tell you how not to do AA, because, like, that's what I know best. You know, I know how to rely on human power. I know how to rely on a relationship. I know how to rely on money. I know how to become a control freak. I know how to put other higher powers before the highest power. I know how to do all that. I know how to do that very well. And I know how to lose that humility and forget about that that contract I kind of made when I first came in the rooms of AA. Like, remember, it was agreed to at the beginning that we would go to any lengths for victory over alcohol. I come in and I'm desperate and I'm broken and I'm willing to do anything you tell me to do because I'm dying and I'm in so much pain. Then what happens is the outside starts to look good again, and I get this beautiful life, this life that God gave me, this life that Alcoholics Anonymous gave me as a result of the work I do here, and I forget that I didn't do this. I forget that I don't have the job and the life I have today because of, you know, I'm special or because of something amazing that I did. It's because AA taught me how to show up for life and taught me the humility of being a worker among workers and how to be employable and how to pay money back and how to do all these things that I was incapable of doing when I came in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't even know how to pay a bill. I didn't know how to do anything. I lived in such denial that I didn't open my mail because of, you know, I thought that if I didn't see the bill, it didn't exist, you know, that magically it would go away. Like, that's how I lived my whole life. And you guys taught me how to face everything and face the truth. But I was talking to my friend here so beautifully, you know, joined me on my ride up here. She's probably heard me speak a million times, so thank you. You know, but talking about falling back to sleep in Alcoholics Anonymous and suffering from that delusion that I need to have this appearance that I have everything together. I need to present this image to the world that I know what I'm doing and that, you know, that everything is fine. Everything's fine. And that will kill me. That will kill me faster than anything else, is trying to run around AA and tell you I have everything together and that nothing's wrong anymore. And having this experience and the humility to tell my sponsor, like, I can't do this anymore and I'm dying sober, and to go through the steps again and start from scratch and like look at really, like, you know, it's funny. I can admit complete defeat when it comes to alcohol. I remember she asked me, you know, do you think you're powerless over alcohol? And I'm like, absolutely, completely powerless over alcohol. All right, what about everything else? What about, like, the other people in your life, your job? And I'm like, no. Because I was so busy with my hands and everything in my life trying to control it. And that's what led to the life unmanageability I had in sobriety. And that's what was leading to my discomfort. And it's you know, having this experience going through the steps again and realizing I know absolutely nothing was one of the most freeing things I've done in a really long time. I had a list of 25 amends owed at 8 years sober. So I don't know what that tells you, but what it tells me is that, you know, that alcohol's not really the problem at all. I'm the problem. I'm the problem, and I can cause just as much harm in my sober skin as I can with a drink in me. And, you know, I definitely, this is not what I signed up for when I came in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I really, really just thought I came here to stop drinking. I really, you know, just thought you guys were going to help me get my life back together and patch up some messiness in my life. You know, I hear these traditions read at the meetings, and I absolutely love the traditions. I do now. I didn't when I first came in. I used to walk into a traditions meeting and leave right away, like, not this. And here's a fun fact. I only learned the traditions of AA so I could argue effectively at my home group. Like, that's it. I wanted to be able to fight better, and that's how God uses my defects. You know, because what happens is I start reading these traditions, and I start realizing how vital they are for the survival of Alcoholics Anonymous and for all of us as a whole, because this is a we program and I can't do this in a vacuum. I've tried, believe me. I've tried sponsoring myself, being my own higher power and practicing these steps on my own, and it doesn't work. It's very lonely and dark. And I need you guys. And my absolute favorite tradition will always be the only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. And if you're here tonight with that desire, welcome. And if you're here tonight without that desire, welcome, because that was my story. I came in and out of the rooms of AA for many years without a desire to stop. I didn't want to stop. I had no honest desire to stop drinking. Why would I want to stop? Alcohol worked. It did. It really, really worked until it didn't. And I had a desire for the consequences to stop. That's it. I wanted to stop losing my children, losing jobs, losing relationships, you know, losing homes. I wanted my family to talk to me again. But I did not want to be separated from alcohol. I did not want to be in my sober skin. It was so unbearable and so uncomfortable, and I was looking for any other solution other than a spiritual one. And I'm always, always, always seeking outside of myself to fix what's wrong internally, because I always think it can be something out here. I think it can be a relationship or a job or a certain dollar amount in my bank account or a house or a car or the right number of children. So I keep trying to fix what's wrong with me with something out here. And what that causes me to do is make all these fear-based and self-based decisions that I don't even realize I'm making. Like, let me have a couple of kids. Let me get married a couple of times to men I'm not really in love with. Let me lie on my resume to get a job I'm not qualified for, only to get fired a few weeks later. Like, this is how I live my life. I'm always seeking outside of myself and protecting this image, managing my reputation. And inside I'm dying slowly, and I can't breathe a sober breath. And, I honestly saw no way out for me. I really believed that I was going to be one of those alcoholics. I was resigned to the fact that I was that alcoholic who was probably going to die of this disease. I was okay with that. I really was. I just, I knew I was down for the count. I knew this thing had me at the end, and I wasn't really interested in like having this experience with the 12 steps, because you guys were talking about God and you were talking about doing things that I wasn't willing to do, like tell the truth. An honest and thorough inventory. Oh Lord, that's the last thing I wanted to do, is tell you the truth about me, because if you saw the truth about what was inside of me, you would hate me too. You would see the disgusting human being that I truly was. And even more terrifying than that was facing all the people that I had harmed, sitting in front of the people I had hurt more than anything else in this world, and attempting to right these wrongs, because honestly, I didn't think there was a way to right any of these wrongs. I didn't think redemption was available to me. I thought it was available to other people. And you talked about God, and I didn't understand that concept, or I didn't want that experience, because I was brought up in a house where God was the center of everything, and I couldn't connect with that God. I felt nothing but judgment. I felt nothing but fear with the God of my understanding when I came in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. See, I was brought up by amazing parents. They're still married 50-something years later today. I mean, my parents are wonderful people who did their absolute best, and that's actually not the story I came into Alcoholics Anonymous with. I had a whole other story for you, and it was all full of what a victim I was, and poor me, poor me, poor me, but none of it was true. And they taught me about God, and they taught me about morals, and they taught me about values, and what I heard was that Sarah's a bad girl, and Sarah's a liar, and Sarah's done all these things wrong, and Sarah's probably going to hell, so she doesn't belong in this church that they go to. And and that's what I felt about that God, and that's what I felt about you. I felt separate and disconnected and cut off and alone and afraid all the time, even as a little kid, well before I picked up a drink. Well before I picked up a drink, this is how I felt. I just remember being constantly consumed with what you thought of me, how you saw me, and thinking I never measured up to anybody else. 6 brothers and sisters, and I was the bottom of that. I just couldn't be enough, no matter what I did. And at the age of 15, I picked up a drink, and I talk about what happened around this, and not because what I experienced made me an alcoholic, but I do believe the trauma I experienced at that time at the age of 15 set in motion this train of events that led to my, that accelerated my drinking. I experienced this horrific trauma at the hands of these 3 men when I was 15 years old. And my mother's response to this woman, this godly woman of the church, her response to this when she sees her daughter in the hospital bed is like, how dare you, how could you be so stupid? Like, why did you put yourself in this position? And so I'm already this young woman who's terrified and who loathes herself and afraid of everybody, and then this happens, and the one person in the world I think is supposed to love me and protect me above all else abandons me, and that's my perception of what happened. So, after that, I didn't even want to breathe anymore. I didn't want to live anymore. I had no desire to keep on going. I was just full of shame, and I was living in the darkness, and then I picked up a drink, and I realized the effect that alcohol could produce, and it saved my life. I wanted to, I could have fun. I could breathe. I wanted to be a part of life for the first time ever. I was okay with being Sarah. What those boys did to me didn't matter anymore. My mother's reaction to it didn't matter anymore. Everything was okay. My perception of reality had completely changed, and I was comfortable in my skin for the first time. And at no point after that did I ever want to be separated from that feeling. At no point did I want to be separated from that relief that I had. And in the beginning, from the beginning, I experienced that phenomenon of craving, that allergy that the book talks about, although I had no words to define it. I just knew that once I had one of anything, that there had to be more. In fact, I remember being offered a drink and being like, well, how much do you have? Well, I got you one wine cooler. And be like, what's the point? What's the point? That won't do it for me. I always needed the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth and so on. And I don't understand people like my sister who can still go out to eat and have a glass and a half of wine and push it away and be like, oh, I'm sleepy, or I'm getting a little giddy, let me drive home. That's not my story. My story is I will keep going and going and going until I pass out and one of my friends is dumping me on my parents' front doorstep. And that's how it was. But this is a disease of progression, and our book talks about that many of us start out as moderate or hard drinkers. And I don't know how moderate I ever was, but I do believe that, you know, for a period of time, if there had been some kind of divine intervention, perhaps I could have stopped earlier without the level of consequences that I had. But there weren't consequences. I didn't have anything really stopping me. And in the beginning, if I had a sufficient reason to stop, I could. Like when I got pregnant with my daughter at the age of 19, for those 9 months that I was pregnant, I separated myself from alcohol for 9 straight months. But what separates me from the normal drinker like my sister is that for those 9 months, all I can think about is getting this kid out of me so I can get to the bar and get loaded again. You know, my sister's like getting a nursery ready and she's getting excited to meet this child, not me. I just want the pregnancy to end so I can get that sense of ease and comfort again, because that's all I care about. And I didn't stop drinking out of any sense of virtue. I stopped drinking because of what you guys would think of me, because it's a really bad look for a pregnant woman to sit in a bar. So I just didn't do that. And that's, you know, the second she was born, that's what I did. Started drinking again, and so I'm able to stop when my daughter, you know, with my daughter. But when you fast forward 7 years later, and I get pregnant, you know, second marriage, second child with my son, I can't stop, and I don't want to. Like, I can't stop. And I'm living in this place of deep, deep shame, you know, because the progression of my disease looks like this. Like, my illness starts out when it's fun and alcohol is this party and it's doing this thing for me. It's producing this effect where I'm comfortable in my skin again. But the problem is, the longer I'm at it and the more shameful things that I do in connection with my drinking and as a result of my drinking or for the next drink, it pushes me down into this deep, deep, dark place, and I need more and more alcohol to wake up in the morning and face myself. Like, I can't even look at myself anymore, and you know, I'm taking all these hostages and marrying men I don't love, and I'm lying to them and presenting this image that I'm somebody that I'm not, and I want to build this picture-perfect life on the outside, and you know, because I'm consumed with the idea that that's what's going to make me like everybody else. And you know, I get pregnant with my son, and I can't stay sober. I can't. And as a direct result of everything I did during that pregnancy, I give birth to a 2-pound baby at you know, who's 3 months premature, and he's, you know, the first time I lay eyes on him, he's hooked up to tubes and in an incubator, and he can't breathe on his own, and he can't be held. And I look at that little boy, and in that moment, I loved my son as much as I was capable of loving any human being at that point in my life. But what comes with that sense of love and that feeling of love that I have is this even deeper sense of shame, knowing that I did that to him, knowing he can't breathe because of me, knowing he can't be held because of me. I did that. And I just need more and more and more alcohol. And in all these things I end up learning, you know, in hindsight about my alcoholism and what it does to me and who I am as a person. Like it talks about in our book, like that many of us had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we could not live up to them even though we wanted to. Because I so desperately wanted to be a mother to my children. I so desperately wanted to be a good daughter and a good wife and a good human being, and I just did not have the power to do that. Because the kind of mother that I am, I nod out and I drop my child on the floor. And I leave him in my car in Philadelphia on a hot day in some of the worst neighborhoods and throw a blanket over his head and walk around the corner to get a drink. And when my son is 8 months old, I get locked up. I get arrested with my child in the car, and my husband has to come pick his son up from a police station. And I remember getting bailed out the next day and coming home, and my husband is sitting in the living room. And everything is packed, and he's ready to leave me, and he's ready to take our child. And I beg and I plead and I say, you know, you can't do this. You can't leave me. You can't leave me. You can't take my child from me. And he agrees. He says, okay, I'll stay. I'll fix this. We'll fix this. But you have to go to treatment today. And I looked at that man, and I looked at my son, knowing that he was going to walk out that door and he was going to take my child with me. And I said no. I said no. Because my brain will tell me something like this. You can worry about this tomorrow. You can get him back tomorrow. But right now you just need a drink. And that's all that matters. And the shame that comes with that, the guilt that comes with that was so heavy that I kept drinking and drinking and drinking to cover this up. That what I had done, like what kind of woman, what kind of mother chooses alcohol over her children? What kind of monster am I? I believed that for so long. I didn't believe I deserved sobriety. I didn't believe I deserved to be happy. And it wasn't for many, many years that I was set free by a woman in Alcoholics Anonymous who opened up the big book and showed me where it says, and there is a solution, that for reasons yet obscure, most alcoholics have lost that power of choice when it comes to a drink. That I don't have the power to choose my children no matter how badly I want to. And that doesn't mean I don't owe amends to my children. That doesn't mean I'm not responsible to clean up the disasters. It doesn't mean that I don't have to clean that wreckage up. It means that I'm not some low-life scumbag who's unworthy of grace and forgiveness. It just means I don't have it means alcohol is more powerful than anything, especially once I have it in my body. And you know, when he left, I simply wanted to die. And I'm a coward. I don't have the courage to actually kill myself, so I lie in bed and I just drink around the clock. And I will myself to die, and I stop eating, and you know, I shrink to 75 pounds, and you know, I damn near succeeded, actually. And my mom, this woman who I've demonized my entire life, has a gut feeling that something's wrong with her child, and she gets in her car and drives 2 hours and shows up at my front door, and she finds me dying, burning up, fever of 106. Takes me to the hospital, and you know, the doctors say, you know, your daughter's going to die. She has a heart infection and multiple blood infections. There's really nothing we can do. And while this woman is standing at my bedside doing nothing but trying to be helpful to me, all I can do is scream at her and curse at her and say, how dare you? Why didn't you just leave me alone? Why didn't you just let me die? Because I can't care about her. I don't care about her. I don't care about her pain or her suffering. I don't care about my children. I don't care about my siblings. I don't care about anybody but myself. I'm in pain, and I want it to end. And you know, I would like to tell you that my drinking stopped there, that was enough to scare me after I survived this near-death experience, but it just wasn't. My drinking went on for many, many years, and it looked like this. And I'm sure many of us have similar stories, or some of us have different stories, because I'm here to tell you that my consequences, all this stuff that I experience on the outside, has nothing to do with what makes me an alcoholic. So if you're listening to me tonight and you hear about my 11 felonies, and yes, I have 11 felonies, and the fact that I've lost custody of 2 children, or, you know, lost 2 marriages, lost apartments, jobs, all this stuff, none of that is what makes me an alcoholic. And the person who comes in here tonight with a 2-car garage and a marriage, and their, you know, marriage intact and their job, can be just as much of an alcoholic as I am, because that's not what makes me an alcoholic. What makes me an alcoholic is when I start, I can't stop, and when I'm stopped, I cannot stay stopped. And that's my story. And but my consequences are definitely what ended up bringing me enough internal and emotional pain to get me to God and to get me to a spiritual solution. But it took me a really long time to get there, and especially to even get in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, I kept trying to just be separated from alcohol, thinking that was going to solve the problem. And I keep going to detoxes and treatment facilities and getting separated over and over again, and looking for another solution in group, and leaving AMA with him and moving in together, you know, in his parents' basement with some trash bags, and ending up co-defendants. And like, this was the cycle over. And every time I'm separated, I'm telling you the same story. Like, I'm going to get out of here and I'm going to get a, you know, a job. I swear I was going to be a drug and alcohol counselor. This was the goal. And God bless all of you who do that, because for 3 weeks I worked as a tech in sobriety, and I can't. Like, I can't. I thought that's what I wanted to do, because I thought I could cure everybody the second I got separated from alcohol. And I would get out and I would drink again. I'm going to get my kids back. I'm going to get an apartment. I'm going to do this. And the second you let me out, I drank again, and I couldn't figure out why. I just couldn't figure it out. I thought the problem had been removed, right? And I finally ended up in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous when my son was 6 years old, and he was being raised by another woman, and he was calling her mom. And I hated that woman more than anyone else on the planet, because I was convinced that she stole my child from me, not that I walked away. I really believed that this woman just so badly wanted to get up in the middle of the night when my son had a fever, pay for his school clothes, or take him to all his, events, and, do all the hard work that I was incapable of doing. And, but I ended up in AA not because I was attracted to what was going on here. I was essentially paroled to AA. I was in a halfway house, and I was required to go to 5 meetings a week and get a paper signed. And I came to the rooms of AA, and I didn't hear a word about God or the solution. I shut down every time anybody wanted to talk about things spiritual in nature, and I looked for an external solution yet again. I dressed up the outside, got a job in a diner, got a couple of boyfriends, and raised my hand and talked about myself for a good solid 5 minutes in every meeting. And I was really good shares, and I would leave and I really, this is what my idea of AA was, that it was this really long, one day at a time group therapy session where I come to AA and I tell you all about myself, and then I leave and I go on with my life. And nothing about that seemed attractive to me, nothing. It sounded like a death sentence, actually. And it wasn't until I understood this time around, for me, what one day at a time really means, that daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition, that one day at a time I get to live free, provided I take some simple steps, that I follow some direction, and that I actually care about God's kids, and try to work for God, and try to keep my side of the street clean. But I really believe this is what Alcoholics Anonymous was. And I went for 3 months, and once I had enough money saved up in my sock drawer, because I can't put it in a bank because I owe everyone money, and I got an apartment. And I don't need AA anymore because I have a supervised visitation with my kids, and I'm doing great. And a month into living in that apartment, I was at my daughter's lacrosse game, and my 6-year-old son was there, and he looked at me and he said, "You're not my real mom. Kim's my real mom because she takes care of me every day, and you just gave birth to me." And I will tell you, the pain of that sentence was so severe I could hardly breathe, and for the rest of that game, I was counting the seconds till I could drop that kid off and get a drink and stop that pain, because I knew a drink would work. And then what happened is I have one drink, and a year and a half later I can't stop. And it doesn't matter that there are warrants out for my arrest. There's eviction notice on my door. And it didn't matter that in a couple of days I had a court date where I could have potentially continued visitation with my son. That court date was going to go favorably to me, but I picked up a drink a day or two prior. And alcohol became paramount, the most important thing in my life, and I couldn't stop for a year and a half until I was physically separated by law enforcement. And what do? I repeat the same cycle. I get out of jail, I go to a recovery house, I get a sponsor in name only, I go to meetings because I'm required, I do no work, I meet an aspiring rap artist who lives in another recovery house, and we move in together after knowing each other for 2 weeks, and that was it. That was the beginning of the end. It was the shortest run of my life, and it was only a month long. And the difference in this run was that at the end of every other run, I had nothing, maybe a backpack of clothes, nothing external. But this one was different. I had a roof over my head, I had a job, I had a car, I had money in my pocket, and I wanted to die. I wanted to die. And I remember that last night, May 2nd, 2012, I was living in Northeast Philadelphia, and it was around 4 in the morning, and I got on the highway and driving to North Philly, and I cried out to God for the first time in my entire life with absolute sincerity, because something happened that night that I had not experienced yet. Because for the first time in my entire life, I had the most overwhelming and overpowering desire to turn my car around and go home, and I couldn't physically do it. No matter how badly I wanted to, I couldn't. And for the first time, I knew in my heart I was drinking against my will, and this thing had me, and I wasn't going to be able to stop on my own. and I screamed out to God, and this was my prayer, and there were a lot of curses in it, and for Ron's sake, I'll keep it clean, but it was, dear God, please kill me or stop me. Please. Like screaming and pounding on the steering wheel, begging God to kill me or stop me, because I couldn't do it anymore. And 12 hours later, I had handcuffs. And, you know, what happened was after 11 felonies and then getting locked up on a little retail theft, I'm thinking I'm getting a slap on the wrist, and I have this little moment of relief that, you know, thank God this run is over and I'm finally like done. But, you know, that gift of desperation is gone in a heartbeat and is replaced by fear and ego and trying to manipulate and find my way out of this. And God did not give me a way out, and thank God for that. You know, I called every person I could think of to try to find a way out of this, you know, to manipulate my way out of it. One by one, every single person I know hung up on me. And thank God they did. I had no human power left to rely on anymore. And for 18 months, I ended up in state prison. And for 18 months, I was physically separated from alcohol with no chemical or spiritual solution in my life. And in hindsight, I can tell you what that looks like. I am that monster who calls home on my parents' dime on the money they put on a phone account, telling them what they need to do for me, and writing very long apology letters home to my siblings and other family members about how sorry I am, but if you were better people, I wouldn't be here. P.S. send money. You know, and that is what I look like. That's what I look like when you just take a drink from me. It says in our literature, like, we feel a man on thinking when he said sobriety is enough. I know for me, especially with the harm that I've caused, those closest to me, those who dared to love me, that sobriety will never be enough. It will never be enough. And after 18 months, I get out of this place with ideas on how I'm going to run my life, and within days of being home, every idea I have is stripped from me, and I'm left in my sober skin with no solution in my life, crying out to God all over again, curled up in the fetal position, begging God again, what do I do now? I'm in so much pain. Help me. What do I do? Why does it hurt so bad? I haven't had a drink in 18 months. What do I do? And God showed me, walked me up the steps completely broken of the Greater Northeast group of Alcoholics Anonymous. And for the first time in my entire life, I saw God in the eyes of a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I have seen sober members of AA for years, but this was different. God put people in my path who I drank with, got loaded with. These people I knew were just as broken as me, and they were sober and they were lit up. They were free, and I knew they didn't do that. I just knew they didn't do that. And I knew something bigger was at work here. And for the first time in my life, I believed that maybe, just maybe, this might work for me. And I asked a woman to help me, and I went through the steps. I went through quickly, and none of it was comfortable. There was not like some heavens partying experience. Like, none of that happened. I remember my third step prayer was one of the most uncomfortable things I had experienced in a very long time, including being strip searched in prison. Like, it was that uncomfortable to me. I felt that exposed, kneeling on the floor of a recovery house. Because you have to understand, I'm brought up in this family where we prayed in public around our food at McDonald's. I just remember being embarrassed by that. I didn't want anything to do with this prayer thing, but I was desperate. I was so desperate. And I knelt on the floor of that recovery house with that woman, and I said those beautiful words, and I didn't even know what I was saying, and I certainly didn't know what decision I was making in that moment. Just a simple decision. A decision I had never made before. I hear these words, I made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the power of God, right? I don't know what that means. I don't even know what God is. I made a simple decision that day when I stood up and I started writing. And that woman told me to write, to take some action for the first time in my entire life, to follow it up with action, because it says it right there in black and white. If we turn our page over from the third step prayer, it immediately says, although this decision is a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of what was blocking us. And oh boy, like I went to town. She told me that I could write about everybody I was angry about. And this woman, she met me exactly where I needed to be met, because she told me only to write the first 2 columns. Because when I first came in, I was incapable of seeing past what you did to me. I couldn't see it. And that beautiful woman sat down with me for 4.5 hours through 27 pages of resentments and helped me see all these decisions based on fear and self that I had made time and time again that had placed me in a position to be hurt. And I can't tell you that I walked out of that fifth step being able to look the world in the eye and feeling the nearness of my Creator. Quite the opposite, as a matter of fact. I felt worse, profoundly worse, because I saw the truth for the first time in my entire life. What happened in that fifth step was a shift in perception. So for instance, my mother gets a page to herself. It's all her fault. You know, this is what she did to me. And as we work our way down these columns and get to that fourth column, about how selfish and self-seeking and frightened and dishonest I am, and what a monster I've been to this woman, and how I've tortured her almost my entire life. What comes out of this conversation is that I have taken this one decision that my mother made when I was 15 years old, a decision probably based on her own fear, and I allowed it to blind me to every beautiful thing my mother did for me my entire life. Every time she showed up in treatment centers and detoxes with new clothes, every time she came to pay my bail, every time she invited me to Thanksgiving when nobody was speaking to me, my mother loved me and loves me unconditionally, and I cannot see that past my resentment. I can't see you past my resentment. I can't see anything, and I can't feel God. And what happens is I feel this discomfort, and I see in black and white who I really am, and I don't want to be that person anymore. And it's interesting that early on, like 6 and 7 get breezed over in our big book. They're these 2 tiny little paragraphs, right? They're not that big of a deal, except that's where all our spiritual growth happens, right? In the beginning, I come in and the bar is so low because I'm crawling into windows, burglarizing homes to get the next drink, and cheating on every single relationship I've ever had. So I come in and I'm like, all right, well, I'm not doing that anymore, so I must be good. And I'm so broken. I'm like, God, of course, have all of me, good and bad, take all of this. I don't want to be this way anymore. Fast forward to 9 years sober, and I'm like, I still want to do that. You know, I'm holding on to certain things that I think or believe are working for me. Victoria and I are talking on the way up here about how much I love to play God in my life, and I don't even realize I'm doing it. I don't even realize it. I get so afraid of losing things in my life. I cling to them for dear life, like money or relationships, and I can't let go. I get this vice grip on these things that I feel I'm entitled to, and that's where my suffering comes in. But in the beginning, I'm so broken. You know, I'm on my knees, and I'm like, God, just take it, just take it. And you know, I believe that. That our steps are in order for that reason. Like, I could not go and make amends to these people that I had harmed, carrying all these horrible defects with me. I needed to experience that utter brokenness and that utter humility before I went out into the world trying to, attempting to clean away the debris that had accumulated out of my efforts to live on self-will and run the show ourselves. Doesn't say a word about drinking, by the way, because like I said in the beginning, I can cause just as much harm sober as I can with a drink in me, because it has nothing to do with that. And I go out into the world and I start trying to clean this stuff up, and that's where, I started to feel that fundamental idea of God that is deep down within all of us. I started to feel that presence within me. I started to experience these promises, these extravagant promises. I started to be able to go to sleep at night, look myself in the mirror, and I started to feel not way up here or way down here. I started to feel just okay. And for me, for an alcoholic like me, that was miraculous. That was absolutely miraculous. And, I always thought the promises that I heard in every meeting, that was the goal, right? That's where I'm headed, but that's the purpose. But really, for me, what I believe is those promises are just a byproduct of the work we do here. The real purpose of what we do here is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people around us. And I will tell you that the amends process has absolutely allowed me to be of maximum service to God and the people around me in ways that I never would have imagined. When I was coming up on 4 years sober, my sister died. And as a result of the amends process, not only was I given the absolute most beautiful relationship I had ever had with my sister in my entire life, I was able to give my sister a friend for a year and a half because she had nobody in this world to talk to. She was living in this place of shame and fear. She was severely anorexic. And she was walking around in this darkness that I had lived in most of my life. And what you guys gave me, what Alcoholics Anonymous gave me, was the ability to share my story with her, to tell the truth to her about the way I felt, to give that depth and weight to my sister and set her free just for a little bit of time so she just didn't feel that much alone. Because these are things she couldn't tell her husband. These are things she couldn't tell her children or my parents. And she was living in this really dark place. And I got to have this experience with my sister for a year and a half before she died. And not only that, when I got that call from my mother and I heard that scream and that horrible brokenness in my mother's voice, I intuitively knew how to handle a situation that otherwise would have baffled me. I knew that I had to show up and help my parents bury their daughter. I knew I had to show up and help her children bury their mother, to be of maximum service to God and my family. And God gave me this really beautiful gift that I did not see as a gift at the time at all. It's all this hindsight. I get to see things, but God put me in the exact moment where my mom saw her daughter in the casket for the first time, and I got to be there to comfort my mother, be there in that moment, be present for her, which is something I had been incapable of doing my entire life. Because on my power, without the immense process, without God, and without the 12 steps, and without you guys, I'm in a bathroom getting loaded, I'm in a prison cell, I'm in jail, I'm in rehab, I'm anywhere else but in that moment. And like, I learned this thing about spirituality when I get sober, because I come in and I hear you guys talk about, you know, this 11th step, like seeking through prayer and meditation, and what I believe that's supposed to look like, right? I believe I'm supposed to like learn Zen Buddhism and, you know, go on mountaintop retreats and start practicing yoga, and it's all really cool stuff. I do a lot of 11th step work outside the book because it tells us to, right? That this is a beginning. You know, this book is a beginning, and I read other books and I do other spiritual things. But what I find about spirituality in my life today, it's that messiness, it's that brokenness, it's walking through what I believe is the most painful thing in my entire life, and having this presence and this knowing in my heart that God is in the center of all of this. That God is there and that God is present. So I walk through pain, not around it. And that is something I had been unwilling to do my whole life. I was talking to Ron before the meeting. We were talking about running. I ran my whole life. I ran from everything. And now, like walking through it, and you know, I have a woman in this room who's seen me walk through some really messy, ugly stuff. And I don't always walk through with grace. I don't. Like, I make so many mistakes. I have made so many mistakes, and I know that I will continue to make mistakes. You know, we have a 10 steps that literally tells us to continue to watch for selfishness, resentment, dishonesty, and fear. Some days I get up, I'm like completely gripped with all of these things, right? I heard a speaker not too long ago say this, and I'm really grateful, and I'm just going to steal this because frankly nothing in AA is super original anyway, but talking about what it means to be in fit spiritual condition, because I have this idea that if I'm in fit spiritual condition, I'm just not supposed to experience any of those things. I'm not supposed to get mad. I'm not supposed to be selfish. I'm not supposed to lie to myself or to others. Like, I'm not supposed to be afraid. And that's not true. I'm in fit spiritual condition when I tell you I'm experiencing that. When I tell God I'm experiencing that. When I tell the truth about it. And that's what I missed for a really long time. You know, I make these decisions. Like, I've been in 2 long-term relationships in sobriety. One couldn't stay sober. The other couldn't stay away from other women. I stay way too long in both. I play God in both. And I make other things my higher power. And what happens is I start living in this shame and fear of, like, what you're going to think of me. Oh, no, you know, Sarah's image might get, messed with. I have to pretend I have it all together. And what I've come to find out is that every mistake I've made in Alcoholics Anonymous and in and out of the rooms of AA can be made useful to somebody else, provided I bring it to God and I tell the truth about it. So I'm not going to lie to you tonight and tell you I don't make mistakes, and I don't screw up on any given day, and that I haven't had to make really difficult and really uncomfortable amends to people in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous that I've harmed in sobriety. Because that's the truth. That's the truth. I make mistakes and I mess up. But, you know, what we're giving here is this spiritual kit of tools that teaches me how to walk through that, how to have the humility to admit that I'm wrong. And believe me, with some people it's easier than others. Like, I'll tell you, my best my best friend and roommate, like, he is literally the last person on earth I ever want to admit I'm wrong to, like, ever. And I will hold on to that until I'm so uncomfortable that I can't do it anymore. And then I just have to say, like, I'm wrong. Because what happens is I get an awareness now. I get an awareness, and that awareness starts to make me really uncomfortable. And my default mode used to be go out and get loaded over that. And instead, my default mode is like, what does AA tell me to do? What does AA tell me to do? And, you know, would I rather be right or would I rather be happy? And, you know, some days I can be doing everything Alcoholics Anonymous tells me to do. And I remember calling my good friend Shay up a few weeks ago, and I woke up and, like, days on end, like, crippled with fear, and I couldn't figure out why. And I'm calling her up and I'm crying. I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm in service. And she goes through, like, what? Let's look at all three sides of the triangle. What are you doing? Are you in service? Yup. You know, doing this, sponsoring women, active in my home group, like service, unity, recovery, doing all those things. Sometimes that's just alcoholism. Sometimes I can be doing everything the book tells me to do, and I just have to be willing to walk through these uncomfortable feelings, because that's what alcoholism looks like. And I'm here to tell you, sometimes I can't stand it. I am not grateful to be an alcoholic. I hear people say that all the time. I'm like, I'm grateful to be an alcoholic. I'm not. I am more grateful for Alcoholics Anonymous than I can ever put into words, but I am not grateful for this head that sometimes wakes me up, annihilating me. But I am beyond grateful for the solution you guys have given me to help address that and to help walk through that. And that is, that's a gift that's available to every single person here tonight. And as a result of practicing these principles to the best of my ability, and sometimes not, I get to live this life beyond my wildest dreams. I really do. It's funny, I'm an 11-time felon. I am now a paralegal in a corporate law firm. And that's not something I ever saw happening. You know, I walked into a courtroom the other day, and I got sworn in for the second time as a notary public in the same courthouse where I was sentenced to state prison. And it was on the 8-year anniversary of me walking out of state prison. And there's just stuff that I experience in my life today that I can't even, like, I can't attribute to any natural force, that there has to be something bigger at work here. There's just the timing of things, like looking around at my life, looking at the miracles that I get to see on any given day, and looking at the miracles that I get to witness in the lives of the people around me, and the fact that I actually care about those people. The fact that I sponsor women today, and that I get to watch their eyes light up, and that I care about them genuinely, that I get to watch them light up from this process, that I get to watch them become employable, them rebuild their lives, them having them gain purpose and get their families back, and then start carrying the message to other women. The fact that I get to be on the front lines for this is an absolute gift, and it's a miracle. And you know, I get to live in this house that I love with my best friend and 6 cats, and I get to have friendships today with like, these women will walk through fire with me, and I never had friendships. Like, I was that awful woman, by the way, who walked around most of my life coming in. I hate this, but I'm only friends with guys because women are drama. Guess who was the drama? You know, I was always the drama, and today I have women in my life today. I can't imagine my life without. I just can't. And, you know, I get these gifts, and my daughter is my best friend in the entire world. And by all rights, she should hate me, and she doesn't. Like, she comes to me with everything. I'm closer to her. She's closer to me than she is to her father, who raised her. And that's a testament to Alcoholics Anonymous. That's a testament to the amends process. She didn't want to hear a word I had to say when I got sober. She wasn't interested in the declaration, by the way. She didn't want to hear a word. She'd heard enough. She had seen enough of her mom walking in and out the door, and she didn't want to hear it. She wanted to see the action. And you guys taught me how to be a mom. You guys taught me how to be a mother, because before I came into AA, I just had babies. I was never a mother. And now I get to love my daughter exactly how she is, for who she is, and not trying to change her or fix her in any way. And I get to have that experience, and I get to have these relationships with my family members. I get to be a daughter today, I get to be a sister today, I get to be an aunt. My family calls me today to ask me how to help my brother who still suffers from this disease. These are the people who had my son's baptism behind my back and didn't tell me when it was happening, so I wouldn't show up. And today they call me up and ask me how they can better help my brother. And that isn't because I'm so wise or I even know what I'm doing, because I really don't. It's because they see the power of the 12 steps working through me. They see the power of the work we do here in Alcoholics Anonymous, and they see the power of God. And that's how this should work, because if my sobriety is only benefiting me, then what's the point? Everything I did my whole life was only benefited me. And I'm going to end with this. I always end with this, but I have a son I haven't seen in probably 15 years now. I think we're at 15 years. And I remember reaching out to attempt to make an amends when I first started going through my steps, and his father and his stepmother don't want to hear a word I have to say. And I have tried on multiple different occasions to attempt to reach out through letters, and they still don't want to hear what I have to say. I've attempted direct contact with my son. He does not want to hear what I have to say. And that is their right. And I remember about 4 or 5 years ago being so torn up about this and not knowing what to do, and I'm really grateful early on you guys taught me it's a program of God reliance and not human reliance, because the big book never says go ask 20 different people, 20 different opinions, and pick which one you like, because I'll tell you which one I would like is to go knock on my son's door, or the well-meaning people who told me get a lawyer because you never fully lost rights, right? I know where my son lives, and what my heart wants to do is bang on his door and hug my son. That's what I want to do. That's what Sarah wants to do. But what the book tells me to do is ask God for an intuitive thought or decision, and that's what I did. And I can't tell you that I relaxed and took it easy. I went to God every single day, and I begged God and I pleaded God, say, God, show me what to do. I haven't seen my son in 10 years. I don't even know what he looks like. Please help me, show me. And God showed me. I typed my son's name into Instagram, and I saw his face for the first time in a decade. And he is beautiful, and he is loved. And I had this peace that came into my heart that can only come from a power greater than me, because it certainly didn't come from me. That the restoration of this relationship will be on God's time and not mine. And the restoration will look the way God wants it to look, not necessarily the way I want it to look. And that does not mean I don't miss my son. It means that God will use this relationship for his purpose and not mine. And that I have the peace in my heart knowing that today. And that's a miracle, because what I believed most of my life is that the outside had to look a certain way for me to be okay inside. That I can't get and stay sober if somebody I love dies. I can't get and stay sober if this job doesn't work out. And I certainly can't get and stay sober and be okay if I don't get my kids back. It tells us in chapter 7, burn the idea into the consciousness of every person that we can get well regardless of anyone. And I'm here to tell you, we can, provided our reliance is on God, on a power greater than us. And it says also, let no alcoholic say they cannot fully recover unless they have their family back. That isn't true. I have fully recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body. I don't have my son back. I may never have my son back. But what I have in my life today is joy, love, purpose, freedom. I haven't thought about a drink in longer than I can remember, and one day at a time, I will continue to live like this, provided I get up and put God and you guys before me. And I'm not special, and I'm not unique. This is literally available to every single person in this room tonight. All we have to do is work for it. Anyway, that's all I have. Thank you so much.
That was a powerful talk. Let's thank Sarah one more time. Thank you. It's customary for us to form a line, thank our speakers formally. They come here at their own time and expense, and that was a powerful talk as usual. Wouldn't expect anything less. Here's an important announcement. In this room, every Monday night, 6 p.m., it's a literature step meeting. We need the next 4 Monday nights. If somebody wants to do a step talk, see us after the meeting, okay? We got a nice way of closing. If you care to join us, we'll take a moment of silence, do with it whatever you like, and if you care to join us, we'll end with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Don't forget the meeting after the meeting.